So everybody, I'm very excited today. We have another returning guest from my Man Cove years, my Man Cove days. We're going to be sitting down with Soph Beresford. Sophie created Like I Care, which is a mental health and well-being blog designed to help those struggling with their mental health to feel a little less alone, reassured and empowered by her experiences and those of others. Welcome back, Soph. How are you today?
I am very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And I've been trying to get previous guests back on. And like I said to you off camera, I was really inspired. There's one particular week where you did some really cool videos and it was really passionate. I thought she's nailing it. You know, she's really got the practice in and nailing these videos. I thought I've got to bring her back on, just especially with your background as a fellow advocate. So I want to thank you for agreeing to join me again.
No, I'm really genuinely very honoured to be back on, given that, you know, as you say, I was able to join you on the Man Cove and to be back now to talk about the same kind of things but slightly different. You know, a lot of things have changed since the last time we spoke, so it's good to have a good chat about everything, isn't it?
I'm going to get the same question that everybody gets when they come onto my show, which is, what does self-awareness mean to you and how do you integrate it into your life?
The self-awareness is it's something that I worked on a lot over the last few years, because for me, self-awareness is when you really know yourself. And what I mean by that is you understand who you are as a person, you understand your character, your personality, whether that's good or bad. So not just focusing on the good, it's also looking at, okay, what are the traits that I have that maybe I'm not proud of or I could do with improving. And I think that is something I've definitely had to learn. So in terms of sort of strength and weaknesses, I've learned a lot about who I am, what makes me tick. For example, that's been really important because that helps to inform what I do on a daily basis.
Whereas I think with men, we know it's like, you should maybe get some therapy or join a men's group or do this. Mm-hmm. That's actually better advice on some level, being tailored to men, which is fantastic. But I would argue, like, for me personally, I've got a load of men in my life that I've met through the podcast. Mm-hmm. Jason and Sean and Kieran, Brody, love you guys, who I've made friends with all over the world. And I can message them no matter what, any time of day, DM, hey guys, I'm struggling. They're straight back. They're making sure I feel okay. And I feel so held by these men. Mm. So no one told me to do that. No one said, hey man, I'm just going to talk to your bloke mates. They'll help you. There's a clear narrative difference, isn't there?
There is. And I think that, I don't think this is necessarily exclusive to women as such, but being told that you can speak to your friends or family is a huge presumption that they're able to deal with mental health conversations and that they'll understand. Because I've certainly had conversations where I've opened up to somebody and they've basically shut the door in my face, or they just haven't been there the way that I thought they would. And I felt silly actually for talking about it, because I've, as you say, I've been lured into this idea of, well, people say they care, so I'll, you know, girl besties, everybody will chat. And actually it didn't work out that way. And I was left with a whole load of issues that I then had to work through on top of what I was already working through. And thankfully I have. But, you know, it's sometimes, and I don't blame people, because it's talking about mental health when you haven't experienced it yourself is very challenging. So I do understand that. And I think there's a lot more work we can do in terms of empowering people to be able to have those conversations.
So over to you, because you're the one that experiences this. So like that has to play a part in mental emotional well-being, isn't it? This preempting 100%. Of being scared.
100%. I really, we might have touched on this last time, but I really, really felt it when I lived in France. So, and that's not to say the UK is great. Can I just throw that out there? That's not to throw it on France and say France is worse than us. But I really felt it over there, to the stage where I'd be really conscious of wearing skirts or dresses if I wasn't in company, because the amount of abuse that would get shouted at me at the street was just so overwhelming. I'd get so anxious about going out that it was horrible. And it did change, you know, the way that I viewed my time there, which is such a shame, because I had so many great moments at the same time. But I suppose here in the UK, it's very, one of the most beautiful things, I think I have to thank you on behalf of all women just actually acknowledging the fact that there is an element of privilege, because when obviously the Sarah Everard case happened, and obviously incredibly tragic, the amount of comments I saw on social media about men saying, well, I feel unsafe. Well, you feel unsafe in a different capacity. You don't think often, whenever I see something like that on television, I say to myself every single time, I really hope that never happens to me. How many men have to think that when they see that? How many men have to think, I hope I don't get sexually assaulted and potentially murdered because of the fact that I'm physically, to a certain extent, a weaker race, like a weaker sex, like that. You don't have to think about that. That's not me saying that men don't get worried when they're out, because there's rowdy, horrible people out there, and I understand that, but it is completely different. And I'm really tired of having to justify to people that as women, that is something, sadly, that we have to deal with. And I can't believe I'm having to explain that to people. It really angers me that I have to explain that to people, because they don't have to. You can't sit there and tell me that you understand what it feels like to be worried that you could get sexually assaulted, which is one of my biggest fears in life. And as I say, I think about it every time I hear a news story, and having to manage that anxiety when you're out. I don't feel as vulnerable when I'm in groups, but say, for example, recently my friend lives about 10 minutes up the road, and I felt stupid thinking about getting an Uber, because I was like, it's 10 minutes, Soph, like, it's just 10 minutes. But actually, thankfully, one of the guys there was like, oh, I'll walk you back. And that meant so much to me, that he was willing to walk me back, because my anxiety was already kicking in of, how am I, will I make it's mad? Will I make it home okay?
Amazing stuff. I'll put all of that in the show notes. I encourage people again to go to Instagram, check out the videos, check out the IG lives, and just soak it up. There's a lot of good content in there. So I just want to thank you again so much for joining me. This was a very emotional and quite vulnerable chat, and I appreciate your time.
No, thank you very much for having me on. I've absolutely loved it once again. I'll be back.
Amazing. Well, some people have been on for Jason, a friend of mine's been on 5 times. So you've got some
competition. Yeah, I've got to beat him now.
But yeah, he'll be back on again at the end of the season. But once I make connections, like really beautiful ones like I have with you, then it makes sense to keep you in the sort of awareness-based sphere, which is nice.